want to start with the statement that technology itself is not good or bad, and I'm at pains always repeating this. Sometimes, rightly or wrongly, people blame the messenger. Right? It's important to differentiate and understand that a knife can be used to cut vegetables, and a knife can cause physical harm. It all is on the user and how they intend to use that, right? So technology can be an amazingly empowering platform, at the same time in the wrong hands, or people who do not know the negative impact, or do not know how to leverage technology the right way, could possibly be negatively impacted. But to answer your question, I think first things first. Today, a lot of the internet ecosystem is what I call feed-based ecosystem, Pratishtha, right? During my time, this is around the 2000s, search engines ruled the world, right? But you had to search for information. So, for example, if you were to go to Google today, you have to search. You ask Google some information, and you get an answer, right? So there's input and output. However, if you fast forward 15 years from the time I graduated, whether it is TikTok, whether it is Instagram, for that matter, YouTube Reels, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, all of these have what they call a For You feed, which is hyper-personalized, which assumes to know you, and then pushes information to you, right? So there is no longer a pull, but push, right? So now think of the world we live today, where we are surrounded by information, right? If you look at your hand, you have your watch, which is an IoT device. Very soon, you'll have driverless cars, and I'm sure you'll have plenty time to read and consume news inside the car, right? Because the car will drive by itself. You have the metaverse. You have glasses. You'll have news in your face, right? You have intelligent home devices that are summarizing news for you. In fact, you have AI tools now that summarize news. You don't even have to read news, right? It reads it out to you, right? So what is happening is we're moving away from a world where we're no longer seeking information, but platforms are pushing information to you. Right? And in that context, the platforms have made a certain assumption of what you're interested in and who you are. Right? Now, that might be true. That might not be true. And even if it were true, even if it were to be true, like my mom would say, just because you like chocolate, you don't eat chocolates because it's going to rot in your teeth. Right? So yes, you might like certain type of information. You might have a certain political leaning, but the more you go down a certain path, or you kind of feed that leaning, that might not necessarily. It might fracture the society. It might also create. It might create a perception and an image of society that might not necessarily be true, right? So I feel like people need to be very, very aware of how information is being fed to them, right? People also need to be conscious of how much time they are spending on these platforms. These platforms are built for attention. These platforms are built to keep you hooked. Right? It's like a one-day cricket match, right? I barely see people move out of their seats, right? You when you sit in front of your TV, you sit the whole day, right? I mean, of course, now it's T20s, right? It's not the whole day. But the point is, all of these platforms are primed to keep you hooked. right? And that in itself causes dissonance, because you're no longer living in the real world. You're in a make believe world, which, yes, of course, is based on reality, but you're living your life on a digital platform where anything could be fed to you, right? And you might lose you might lose touch with reality. So I think it's important for people to recognize and realize and take into cognizance, one, how much time are they spending on the platform? If you're a parent, how much time are your kids spending on these platforms? What sort of content are they consuming? What sort of creators and personalities are they following, right? One thing to keep in mind, and people don't realize this, is if you follow certain creators, irrespective of safety guards, you will get content from those creators, right? So if I am following somebody who's extremely radicalized, doesn't matter what safety rules I have, I'm still going to get access to that content because I'm following this person. So it's important to know how these platforms work, the basics. You don't need to be an expert, but at least the basics of making sure you keep a watch on what sort of comments you're reading, or what sort of comments you're posting, making sure you keep your privacy in place, making sure you keep a watch on how much time you're spending on these platforms. And then lastly, understanding how the algo is rewiring your brain or mind. That all of these, I would say, would be very basic hygiene when consuming content, especially in context of an election cycle.